Welcome to GNN, a weekly Fallout-themed podcast brought to you by Shoddycast, the makers of Hidden History, Fallout Lore, The Storyteller, and Elder Scrolls, The Storyteller. I'm your host, Charles Battersby. And with me is my co-host,
Austin Horrigan, and with us today is someone you may have heard of before. He goes by the name of Muskrat. Oh no, that's not right. It's Gopher! Hello, Gopher.
Actually, Muskrat might have been better. I was actually thinking I need a second name, because you've got, Austin Horrigan and Charles Battersby, and I've got Gopher something.
Gopher
so Muskrat would have actually had a bit more, gravitas, which is kind of sad if you think about it.
So where would listeners of Shoddycast have heard of you, Gopher?
Well, if you watch Shoddycast, you may have seen one video where I actually did the narration for, one of the hidden lore videos. And of course, if you are a fan of the Storyteller and have tried the Storyteller mod, you may have seen my video regarding that particular mod.
And when you're not working for Shoddycast, what do you do?
Pretty much more of the same, really. I am a mod maker, although not that prolific anymore. I used to make a lot more mods back in the Fallout New Vegas days, but now it's mostly modding videos about mods or modded games, and, some videos about, let's play videos about a variety of games, that type of thing.
All right, well, we'll have more with Gopher about his work, but first, let's get into some Fallout news that broke right after we recorded last week's episode of GNN.
So frustrating. It was it was like 12 hours after we wrapped up with Maddie. We were just complaining while recording. It's like, there's been no news for like weeks, and then Bethesda's like, let's put like two big things out like right after. Super frustrating.
One of these pieces of news, you have very strong opinions regarding this, Austin. Why don't you tell us what it is that's got you frothing at the mouth?
Those of you who are regular GNN listeners will notice that last week I recorded a quick little minute and a half pseudo mini rant about season passes. Because Bethesda has announced that it will have a season pass where you can pay $30 up front for quote-unquote $40 worth of DLC in the future. Which kind of herein lies my I think something that kind of got lost in the mix is that I don't think that my hate of season passes, it's not a reflection of the development team or the actual creators of the game. It's really more of a problem that I have with the way that games are marketed nowadays. I think season passes in general and pre-orders to a larger degree promote really bad game making, honestly, because what they do is they give when you buy a video game, right? And you go to back in the day, it was when you went to a store and you would give money to a person. Your money is rewarding the game developer for making that game. And what you're doing when you have something like a season pass or a pre-order is you're rewarding the game maker for making the game before you actually have the game or the DLC in hand. And I think that imbalance can create a lot of problems. It's not that I necessarily think the DLC for Fallout 4 is going to be bad. It's just that I just don't think it's okay to be rewarding that practice, no matter who's doing it.
Like the makers of Duke Nukem Forever.
Yeah, oh God.
You could put a $5 pre-order on that game, and when it eventually came out 17 years later, there were stores that would still honor your $5 pre-order.
No, really?
Is that real? Are you being satirical, or is that actually?
Oh no, I'm dead serious. I think it was GameStop. If you pre-ordered it back when it was first announced, and still, kept that receipt or had some proof in their system, they would still honor the $5 deposit that you put on the thing.
Oh my God, that is pretty incredible.
But now let's talk about what Bethesda is doing. So I'm going to play devil's advocate here, because I really don't have a problem with season passes and with DLC. So with this, they're giving us $40 worth of stuff, and I'm making little air quotes as I talk into my microphone. It's, what someone considers to be a $40 value for $30. And they're saying at least $40. So what they're doing is similar to Skyrim or New Vegas or Fallout 3. We're probably going to get 2 or 3 big story-based mission packs and maybe a smaller thingamajig like, the home fires or, the gunrunner's arsenal and, the courier's stash. So what's so bad about taking a couple of really big things and then throwing in a bunch of little things with it too and then charging a discount for it?
Well, I think the problem, and really at the end of the day, like, it doesn't make a difference to me what a person does with their money. But I think if you decide to wait and hold on to your money, you retain a lot of agency in your own purchasing, which is probably like the weakest argument for all of this. But there have been some problems with season passes in the past. If you look at so I was talking about how this is creating a weird incentive gap between the incentive to make money, like by making a good DLC pack, by giving them the money ahead of time. There's another problem where you create a situation where the developer is now obligated to get content out to the people at a quote-unquote at a reasonable pace. This happened with BioShock Infinite, where they were delayed on a DLC and and they wanted to wait to make it good, and people were pissed and kind of like they kind of had a right to be pissed because they had paid for a season pass and they were guaranteed to have content. And if they had never paid for the season pass, then it wouldn't have been a big deal, and they would have just delayed the DLC until it was good enough. And I think for one thing is it promotes rushing out DLC, and it promotes the idea of getting anything out as opposed to getting something good out that's just worth buying that people are gonna buy no matter what. And like Bethesda does a good job in general, but not all of their DLCs have been like mind-blowingly fantastic. Like there was a lot of people cite the Armored Horse mod for Oblivion.
Because
Silent special guest, wait your turn. Speak.
I kind of agree with both of you actually. And I'll go a little further with Austin's point. It isn't just about they might have to rush it. They may have to not release DLC that they might have otherwise made. I mean, if they release 2 or 3 big DLC and then start thinking, well, there's no point making it anymore, even though we've got some great new ideas, but if we could do it, we're just giving it away for free at this point because everyone's already bought the... So there is, but I'm sort of, I'd say halfway between the two of you. See, I also have no problem with DLC, season passes, pre-order, that type of thing. I have a slight problem with the culture, so the pre-order and the DLC culture. In the case of Bethesda, what I would say is there's nothing inherently wrong about what they're offering as long as everybody realizes they're taking a chance. But although there's nothing wrong with what they're offering, they're stupid to have offered it because people don't want to hear these words. They do not want to hear season pass before the game has come out.
Yeah.
We kind of know they're probably thinking about it, but what they should have said is, if the subject of DLC, they should have said, well, we want to focus on the main game. And then they probably would have been pushed and poked, and they would have acted as if they were having their arm twisted and then said, well, yeah, we are planning something, but nothing solid at the moment. We got a lot of great ideas, but it's all in the works. We really want to get the main game out. And then once we start getting closer to being able to release some DLC, we'll probably do some deals like season passes, etc. But we're not sure yet, nothing definite. And that would have all sounded perfectly reasonable. And if they'd have introduced a season pass at the same time as DLC 1, we might still be discussing whether or not it was a good idea, but it wouldn't have the same shock and horror of them announcing it right now because people just do not want it. We're at this stage where people are literally, they see anything with the words pre-order or DLC in it as automatically toxic Once you say those words, you have to then convince them it's a good idea, because they've automatically gone into this is going to be trying to get money out of my pocket for bad quality stuff, isn't it? That's what people think. So I think they were stupid for saying it, but I don't actually think what they're offering is a bad deal. Is it a bad culture? Probably.
Their pre-order was like largely unirritating to me, and I tend to be generally pretty anti-pre-order, but I was like, nothing seems that bad, so I was not that pissed about the pre-orders or anything like that. But
that's because the core game is the same no matter which version you pre-order or order, and day one people will get the same as the pre-order people. And
they lock out the Ron Perlman narration. They're like, yeah, if you want Ron Perlman to do the actual narration, you better pre-order.
Oh God, don't give people ideas. Can you imagine that? Oh God.
And now, speaking of mods, one of the things mentioned in Bethesda's little mini news update this last week was that they'll have mods on both major consoles. And we've known for quite a while that we would be able to get PC mods on the Xbox One, and it was kind of, well, maybe, probably, sort of PS4. And now they've said it's coming to both major consoles. So what do you guys think about the limitations that have been placed on mods? The two things that Bethesda has talked about is that you can't import assets from another game, and they've said there won't be any nudity mods. So a quick look at the Nexus mods or the Skyrim page on Steam Workshop shows that there are a lot of turn every woman in the game into a naked busty anime girl, or adding in, the Master Chief's armor or the Space Marines from Warhammer. What do you guys think about this policy of, you can make those mods and, keep them on your own PC and share them, on other networks, presumably, but you're not going to be able to import over the busty anime maid girl to your Xbox and PlayStation?
All they're doing is creating there's going to be a really elaborate black market for nudity mods out there with...
Yeah, actually, to be honest, that is probably going to happen, because from a technical point of view, there's no real difference between those and the non-nude mods. From a technical point of view, there's no way they're going to be able to stop it. Obviously, they can stop it being uploaded to their own. But I mean, when you say, what do I think about it? From a user perspective, the consoles are still getting more than they did in, say, Fallout 3. They now have the option to install mods, and that's got to be a huge benefit for console gamers. They don't have to now go off and buy the PC to play mods, unless they're absolutely determined to play all the mods, because there are going to be some mods that technically will not work or will be just too difficult, and there will be mods that are not allowed. But if they just want to use a lot of the mods, skins, weapons, probably even quest mods and that type of thing, this is a huge win for them. If you want the nude mods, get a PC. Join us. Join us.
I feel
That's
like with
the world's worst sales pitch, isn't it? Really.
All right, so now, right after we recorded last week's podcast, Bethesda, the Wednesday morning after we recorded, they released all the information about the DLC and the Season Pass. Then the Thursday morning, the hours before we released our recording, they released their special video talking about strength. So I have a suspicion that at the exact time that people are listening to this, we will have heard the second in the special line.
Hey there, Future Austin here, and Bethesda has released the Perception video. So, yeah, not a lot of, and I'm not expecting to get a lot of new information out of these little precursor videos. I do like that they're doing them. They remind me of what The Witcher did prior to The Witcher's release, where they did little videos that did that gave, for The Witcher, it was more lore than anything else, but they were geared around getting you familiar with the game world. I really like these, the tone of them. I know Charles is probably going to talk about this as well, but I was really interested in how perception is possibly going to be affecting pickpocket, which I believe was mostly an agility-based skill previously. So that is interesting. I'm wondering also, there's actually this point where the Vault Boy pulls a clip out of the gun of an enemy, and I'm actually curious if that's not just tongue-in-cheek, or if that's actually going to be a specific skill that you're going to be good at, the ability to disarm your opponent by removing all their ammunition. I think it's kind of doable in the early games, but it was never really all that easy, so to have an actual skill centered around it could be really, really exciting. I really love to play sneaky characters, so that prospect is pretty exciting. So now I'm going to hand it over to future Charles for his input. Next week we'll try to get on this after the video is actually released.
Thank you, Austin from the future. This is Charles coming to you from Space Year 2015 on a Wednesday afternoon. Now, this week, Bethesda released their latest video in the special series on Wednesday morning, and this just proves my theory that Bethesda knows when we record the GNN podcast, and that their entire marketing scheme for this game is all based around annoying the two podcasters that make some stupid little podcast. Now, the new video is for Perception, and we can assume from this that they're going to go SPECIAL, and so after Perception, we'll get Endurance next week. And with the Perception video, we don't have many surprises. We find out that it's tied to things like shooting and sniping and accuracy and VATS. However, there's one bit of information in here that is a surprise, that it seems that in Fallout 4, Perception is going to be tied to the pickpocket ability. In the previous games, the sneak or steal skills were tied to agility, but this time around we've got some funny little scenes where the character is pickpocketing and stealing things, including pulling ammo right out of an enemy's weapon. So we'll talk more about this on next week's podcast, and we will try to record next week's podcast after they release the Endurance video. I suspect they're going to do one of these every week, starting with Strength, and you will have heard the Perception video by the time you've heard this podcast, and they're going to go on to Endurance, Charisma, Intelligence, Agility, and Luck, right up until the week that Fallout 4 launches. So what did we learn about Strength?
It's mostly the same.
Yeah, I'm just going to say, not a lot really, it's just exactly what it was, and I don't know about you, I'm fine with that. I'm quite happy with the specials being still there and still doing exactly what they did. I suspect they will have more effect now, though. I suspect they will actually have more in-game effect.
There was a line that hinted that it may affect crafting in some way, but then they did this little cheeky editing thing where, oh no, the tape reel screwed up. We fast-forwarded past that part. And I was like, ah!
Now, one thing I noticed that was absent in this video, and tell me if I'm wrong about this, but in all the previous Fallout games, each weapon has a minimum strength required to use it, and if you don't meet that requirement, then your accuracy is diminished when using that weapon. So I don't recall that being specifically mentioned in this video. Do you guys think that Fallout 4 will handle minimum strength for weapons in a different way?
Well, I hope so, actually. I don't think there should be a minimum strength for handling a weapon. I think perhaps if you're not strong enough, your handling of the weapon should be worse. So, but I mean, this ties in hand with the skill system or lack thereof so far. How are we calculating how good you are at shooting with a rocket launcher? I think it's going to come down to a lot of different things, and one of those things will be your strength. The stronger you are, the more steady you are with the rocket launcher. So if you've got a strength 1 character and you try to shoot a rocket, you may be able to do it, but you may be very bad at it. And I think that would be a better system. This is a total guess, by the way. Totally and utterly making this up. But arbitrary restrictions, unless you say, well, you just can't pick this weapon up. And I suppose that could be a case, but very often they had strength requirements on weapons that anyone could pick up.
In general, in the previous games, if you didn't have that minimum number, then there would be a severe accuracy penalty, which would usually be compensated if you just, had really high skill level. And so now we can't do that anymore. So maybe they're jettisoning. Okay, so maybe they're going to get rid of the concept of a minimum strength to use something accurately and then being able to compensate with a high skill level.
Well, I still think what you could have is a system where the stronger you are, the higher your base chance of hitting is. So that you wouldn't have a limit where it's below here you're terrible, above here you're okay. It would be on a scale. So if you were strength 2, you wouldn't be so good with a rocket launcher. If you're strength 10, you're probably starting off with a big advantage. But then your skill is added, or in this case, bonuses from perks are added. So we could see an actual system that's more complicated and yet simpler from the player's perspective. The player just kind of plays.
All right, so let's actually talk a little more about what you do, Gopher. Now, you mentioned you did the narration for one of the early Hidden History videos.
All right. Well, I mean, he contacted me and just asked me to, he gave me some lines, but of course it's kind of difficult for me to read someone else's lines. So I took some liberties with it. And that seemed to be okay. And I think it went down pretty well, actually. So
now, Gopher, on your channel, why do you have this whole channel dedicated to making mods for this one stupid game?
Well, actually, that's not it's for 3 or 4 stupid games, really, isn't it? I mean, it's Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, Skyrim, and now Witcher 3. Why do I have this channel? This channel is an absolute accident. Pure and simple. It only exists because of the file limitation size on Nexus at the time. Because if Nexus had allowed unlimited file size, I was going to upload my tutorials to Nexus and people would just download them and watch them. And you couldn't do that, and I wanted high quality videos, so I uploaded them to YouTube. And I did have a few videos on YouTube showing people how to install some things, but not many. It was my modding Fallout New Vegas series that started the whole thing. And the reason those videos exist is because I had so many mods in Fallout New Vegas, and I had my they were covering a lot of different areas that I would constantly get questions about. How do I get this mod working with this mod and that mod and this mod? And it was the same questions over and over again. So I thought, you know what? Why don't I just take all the mods I think are kind of the essential mods, show people how to install them. It'll probably take 6 or 7 videos. I'll do that, and then everyone will stop asking questions, and I can get back to making mods. That was the original thing. I would get back to making mods rather than answering the questions. And the absolute opposite happened because, of course, I don't have time to make mods anymore, and I've been on YouTube ever since doing the same sort of thing, really.
Right, so back in 2009, when you installed a mod, there was this little red suitcasey thing, and you would just drag that into your data folder, and that's all there is to it. Your mod's installed. And
yeah, some mods. There were already mods that took a lot more than that.
Right, so
there were already.
And now we're starting to get a little spoiled with the Steam Workshop. You can just click a little thing, and then magically stuff appears inside Skyrim for you.
God bless the Steam Workshop.
to say, oh God, no, really?
Oh no! I've triggered the beast.
No.
Okay, we've got our guest frothing mad. Tell us about clicking a little button on Steam and just magically there's this new set of armor in Skyrim.
Right. No, here's the thing. Yes, the Steam Workshop is in some ways no more simple than Nexus with, say, Nexus Mod Manager with its download mod. They're very, very similar, but there are a lot of limitations with Steam Workshop, and there are some features there that I think are positively evil and should be stopped. Auto update, for example. Just stop that. No, disable that. Don't let anything auto update your data folder. This is not official DLC. Do not auto-update, but you have no choice.
And it auto-updates even the stuff that you aren't actively using if you uninstall them.
Holy crap, I gotta go run to my computer real fast.
Right. So there's a few issues there. But one of the worst things for me about the workshop was this idea that now modding is absolutely simple because, of course, the Steam Workshop made it feel like it was simple, but in fact, it's still, you subscribe, it downloads, and you go. That's not that much different to, say, Nexus Mod Manager or Mod Organizer. You click Download with Manager, you activate it, you're done. So that part of it's the same, but people then expected everything to work perfectly, which unfortunately they don't always, and you need to learn a little more. And one of the things I'm always keen on is people understanding that they should take responsibility for their data folder. Mm-hmm. They should know what's happening there, and they should understand the process. Even if at the end of the day, once they've understood the process, all they do is click download with Manager and activate, or subscribe and check it in the data. Even if that's all they do in the end, they should understand the basics behind it, because they may need to, and they won't even know if they need to unless they know about it. So yeah, I kid a little with Steam Workshop. Steam Workshop has actually been very good for the modding community because it has brought a lot of new people into modding. It sort of got them curious, and then they sort of usually make the transition away from the workshop into, to a different community. So it has been a positive thing, but there are some parts of it that still get me going, still get me a little bit.
So is your problem with the Steam Workshop, is one of the problems rather, that it's making it really easy for people to just mod without even thinking about the consequences, and it has that kind of that Valve corporate front, which makes people think that it's like officially sanctioned DLC, and then they get like, they break something and they get like pissed because they were expecting it to be more controlled than that? Is that part of the issue?
Well, partly. The thing is it isn't actually any simpler than doing it via, say, Nexus Mod Manager. Nexus, it just is not any simpler. It's still, people say, well, it's just a click of a button. The same is true on Nexus once you've got the tool set up. And that's what people would argue. Well, I don't even need to set the tool up. So there's there's that one extra step gone, which I suppose is true, but, you did have to go to the workshop and you did have to go through the mods and then hit subscribe, and I would actually say that that's a little more time consuming than doing it on other sites, Nexus included.
And now 6 months from now, do you think we're going to be running into similar problems with Bethesda.net and downloading stuff onto Fallout 4?
I don't know. I'm hoping Bethesda do a better job. I'm hoping they have a system that gives you slightly more control. I mean, I'm assuming they will have load order manipulation, which Steam Workshop didn't even have that when it came out. It didn't have load order manipulation. Had me falling backwards in my seat. I could not believe this. It was as if they had not talked to anyone in the modding community, which is a recurring theme when it comes to Steam and certain things. And this thing with auto update, I'm horrified by the fact that I can't disable that. I'm absolutely horrified by that, but hopefully Bethesda will do a better job. Will it encourage people to think, well, here's the thing. If Bethesda host it, will it not be more official anyway? Will Bethesda have some responsibility to help people out? If people come along and go, I don't want to know anything about this. I just want to click a button and have a fully modded game like I saw on that YouTube thing. Bethesda make it so. Do they have a right to do that if it's Bethesda's site?
I saw there was a conversation early on, shortly after the E3 conference, where they talked about their philosophy with how they wanted to handle modding. And they I believe it was Pete Hines, but I don't quote me on it. It was someone high up there. Is Pete Hines or Howard saying that they wanted to have as little regulation as possible, and allow people the ability to completely wreck their save files, though they did say they would have a backup system in place for the console mods. So in order to have it be like official, like, oh, I've always wanted to work and all that, that would require, I think, a lot more intervention and curation from Bethesda than they necessarily seem at this point to want to do. But I do expect it'll be chaos in the beginning.
Well, that's the thing then. So do I. I think it is going to be chaos, and I think what they need to do is put that up front and center and say, look, seriously, we're trying to make this as easy as possible for you, but when you click this agreement here, you need to accept that if you break your data folder, if you break your game with these things, you are on your own. You did it. You may get help from the mod authors. You may get help from other people in the community, but you don't get diddly from us. Have fun.
So one mod that I desperately want to see for Fallout 4 is something that makes my character look like Sean Connery wearing red leather underpants and thigh-high hooker boots.
Oh, that's terrible.
So mod community, those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, 2 weeks ago we said we were going to do an artsy-smartsy segment on a movie called Zardoz. And that movie is best known not for its brilliant storytelling or its plot or its world, but because Sean Connery was the leading role and his outfit consisted of red leather underpants and thigh-high Julia Roberts hooker boots.
And if you think he's embellishing or exaggerating, he's not. There were some straps though, right? As well.
There was a bandolier of ammunition. But let's start at the beginning. So Zardoz is a movie from the early 70s. It's the second movie that Sean Connery made after he gave up doing James Bond. So it's set in the 23rd century, a few years after Fallout New Vegas, in Vegas's timeline, and it is following a nuclear war that destroyed most of humanity, and now humanity consists of two factions. They're the Brutals, who live out in the wasteland. Most of them live an agrarian lifestyle where they grow bread that's then shipped off to people who are called the Eternals. And the Eternals are the last generation of great genetically engineered humans. They're the ones that have inherited all of humanity's learning and knowledge and mental potential. They were created specifically to be the one group of people that lives forever in this utopian world. And so this is one of the things that we've seen hinted at in Fallout 4, that there's going to be the Utopian Institute that's in the center of a hellish wasteland that composes the rest of the Commonwealth. And in Zardoz, one of the Brutals is played by Sean Connery. His name is Zed, and he is a worshiper of a god called Zardoz. And one of the other most iconic moments of this movie is a giant stone head, that's Zardoz, a flying stone head, that vomits guns and screams the line, "The gun is good, the penis is evil."
Reminds me of Sunday school.
So there's an elaborate backstory. I don't want to blow too much of it, but if you see the movie and you watch it twice, I know it's going to be torture for most people to sit through this movie once, but if you watch it twice, all of the backstory is eventually revealed in the final, few minutes of the story. And then if you watch it a second time, it makes a lot more sense, and you can get a better sense of what the filmmakers were trying to do. And I use the phrase trying because although there's a lot of great ideas in this, it's a failure of a movie.
I haven't seen this since the 70s. I saw this in the 70s. And I have very, very vague recollections of this movie. I do remember the outfit. I remember a couple of things about it. But honestly, what I can tell you is having seen it in the 70s, it didn't make me snicker as much as it does now when I'm looking back at the pictures. So it might just be that the 70s were kind of laughable, really, weren't they?
So now let's go on to a segment we call Ask a Lore Nut, where we answer questions about things that may not necessarily be elaborate enough to justify a hidden history episode or an episode of The Storyteller. So, Elliot Norris at Norseman213 on Twitter wants to know, we all know the Vault-Tec experiments on the vaults, but who's actually recording it all? Alright, so this is a great question, because if you played the first Fallout game, you'll notice that there is no mention of the vaults being some evil experiment. That's something that was introduced during the development of Fallout 2, and then they really ran with it after that. And so the deal is Project Safe House was supposed to be a way to hide people and keep themselves safe during a nuclear war, but it was really a way to perform cruel tricks on a captive population for the purpose of learning how people react to bizarre circumstances. And in Fallout 1, the vaults were depicted as being incompetently run, that Vault 13 has a autocratic overseer and their water chip runs out, and Vault 15, no one in Vault 15 liked each other, so they became raiders and formed a bunch of communities, and Vault 12, they all turned into zombies. And so the vaults were originally depicted as not necessarily malevolent, but just horribly incompetent. And then when Fallout 2 comes along, this is when we get our first inkling that there's some malevolent mind behind it. The first is, of course, Vault 13 is revealed to be part of the Enclave's experiment, and they needed a gene pool that was kept free from any contaminants of the outside world. And Vault 8, which is the first vault that you see in Fallout 2, that's what's called a control vault, where there was nothing deliberately wrong with it. So Vault 8, it opens up, everyone is fine after about 10 years, they've got their Garden of Eden creation kit, and they form Vault City, and everything's great. And then if you hunt around enough in Vault City, you can find some little hints that maybe there was something evil going on. And by the time you get to Vault 13 and Vault 15, you start to learn more about the Enclave, who are only really explained at the end of Fallout 2. And of course, by the time Fallout 3 came out, they were just running with this idea, coming up with all kinds of crazy ideas for vaults. And if you read the Fallout Bible, which was released shortly after Fallout 2, that's where Chris Avallone compiles a list of a bunch of crazy ideas that they had for vaults that weren't actually put in the games.
What I was actually looking at was trying to find an answer to this question, because I'd read about it a really long time ago, and had this answer in my head that I couldn't remember where it came from. It was the idea that the Enclave was doing these experiments, was behind the experiments all along in order to see how human beings would fare in space. That is, and like all of these answers, all the things that surround like the motivations, like the true like end goal motivations of the vaults experiments are entirely non-canon. They're either from games that aren't confirmed as canon, or they're from these weird set of interviews apparently that that Auseer, I think his name is, he's someone who is pivotal in starting the Fallout wikis. Apparently he just like was able to talk to Tim Kaine about some development stuff that you can't find information anywhere, and that's where the whole space thing is. But the original question asks where is all this, I think also asks where all this information is being stored or compiled or supervised. And in Fallout Tactics, there's a Vault 0 that houses a bunch of like brains that are networked together into some sort of super mainframe thing. And one of their duties is to monitor the vaults, but that is considered non-canon, unfortunately. So you can't really consider it to be anything legitimate. So any answer is just as valid as the next, really.
The closest thing that we have to a canonical answer is that the Enclave from Fallout 2 are the ones that were hypothetically monitoring all this information. All right, so Gopher, you are our guest this week. Do you have your own highly irresponsible speculation? Something that might get people fired?
Highly irresponsible speculation. Fallout 4 is actually a virtual reality. Your character starts in the pre-war era, goes into the vault, gets plugged into one of those machines. You go through the entire story, and at the end, it opens up and you realize the bomb's never actually dropped.
all of the whole Fallout franchise has been a sham.
Does it?
It's all been this one guy's dream. Even the stuff that he didn't see, it was his dream.
It's all reset. It's gone.
I have such a sad life.
Reality.
I have such a sad life. I need to go to the VR place. Take me to Mars.
All right, well, thank you for joining us this week for GNN. Gopher, where can people learn more about you online?
Well, just go along to my YouTube channel, Gopher's Vids, or I do actually have a website. It's not officially live yet. That is gophersvids.com, but it will be live pretty soon.
And your social media?
Gopher Gaming, Twitter, and I'm pretty bad at this. I do have a Facebook. I think it's Gopher Gaming there as well. I am terrible at the social media, though, so the YouTube channel is usually the place to go.
All right, so you can stalk me online. I'm at Zardoz and Zardoz at zardoz.com. Austin, where can people find you?
I am AR Horrigan on Twitter and at ShoddyCast as well. And you can I also reply to your messages occasionally on the ShoddyCast Facebook page.
And you can hear us every Thursday here on GNN. And don't forget, there are new episodes of The Storyteller, a Fallout lore series, every Friday, and new episodes of Hidden History every week, along with Saturday morning, The Adventures of Little Zardoz and Pal, starting this weekend.